Hey guys, tonight we're sailing somewhere quiet, so quiet you might not make it back awake. You've washed up on a forgotten island somewhere in the Aegean Sea, a place no ferry lists, no map labels, and no GPS will acknowledge. You probably won't survive this one, at least not in the ordinary sense of the word, awake. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing where the sand meets the slow heartbeat of the waves. The moon is thin, the color of bleached marble. Somewhere in the darkness, a goat bell clinks, the sound oddly rhythmic, as if keeping time for your breathing. The air smells of sea salt and rosemary, of something ancient exhaled by the stone hills behind you. No one told you this island existed until you dreamed of it. A single line in your dream. The guy who forgot his name sleeps here. You laughed when you woke up, of course. But the next day, an old ferry captain in Naxos mentioned an unnamed island that shifts on maps. He said it casually, like a joke told too many times, but his hand trembled slightly when he said the sea there sometimes spoke in two voices. Now, you've come ashore, alone, your shoes heavy with wet sand and disbelief. The village is small, a scatter of whitewashed houses, shutters painted the color of forgotten sky. Cats blink from doorways. A church bell that no one seems to ring size. Once, then falls silent again. As you walk up the narrow lane, the cobblestones shine like fish scales. The locals you pass nod, but do not speak. You notice something strange. Each doorway has a small shell placed in its lintel, as if the sea itself keeps watch. And on the lintels where the shells have fallen or cracked, the air feels different, lighter, but also lonelier. A woman selling pomegranates pauses her counting to glance at you. "You'll want to stay near the shore tonight," she murmurs. Her voice carries a rhythm that could belong to the waves. When you ask why, she says, "Dreams here walk farther inland." Then she smiles, almost kindly, and offers you a fruit split open like a bleeding sun. You take it. It tastes of sleep. You find a small guest house. It's sign painted with faded Greek letters that could mean the sleeping tide. Inside, the walls are cool, plastered thick and rough under your fingertips. The innkeeper gives you a brass key and a small marble charm cracked down the center. For calm sleep, he says, as if sleep were a storm. We all use them. He doesn't elaborate, but you notice he keeps one around his own neck. The same pattern too, concentric circles like ripples in still water. Later, in your room, the ceiling fan hums a gentle metronome. You place the cracked amulet on the bedside table and watch the way the moonlight leaks through the shutters. It lands directly on the charm, and for a second, you think you hear something, a whisper so faint it could be the sea exhaling through a conch shell. You lean closer, and it sounds like a word trying to remember itself. Something that might have once been divine. When sleep comes, it's shallow at first, like floating. You dream of marble steps submerged under clear blue water. Each step you take hums beneath your feet. The hum grows until it fills your bones, and you realize it isn't a song. It's a heartbeat. Not yours. You wake before dawn, unsure if you actually slept. The amulet is warm in your hand, though you don't remember picking it up. Outside, the sea glows faintly silver. You can almost see a shape moving beneath its surface, a suggestion of something vast, resting just below the waves. The villagers begin their day without words. A man sweeps his doorstep. A child collects driftwood. Someone leaves a loaf of bread on the beach and backs away without turning around. The bread rocks gently on the tide, as if being accepted by unseen hands. You follow a narrow path along the cliffs, the sound of your footsteps swallowed by the hum of the morning. Every rock seems to bear faint carvings, waves, eyes, spirals. You touch one, and the stone feels warmer than the sun could justify. Gull cries above you, looping once before flying inland. You watch it disappear into the hills and realize there's something odd about the island shape. From the cliff's edge, you can see its outline. The shore curves like a sleeping figurehead, shoulder, arm one long body, reclined in the sea. The locals weren't poetic when they said the island sleeps. It truly does look as if it might. Wake Dot back in the village, an old fisherman gestures for you to join him. He offers a cup of bitter coffee that tastes like salt and metal. It dreams, he says in English that sounds borrowed. The god, he sleeps under us. We keep him still. You ask what happens if he wakes, and the man chuckles softly. Then, maybe the world wakes too much. He taps his temple. Or not at all. You pocket the cracked amulet again, its weight oddly reassuring. Somewhere deep inside you, deeper than the rational part of your mind, you feel something stir in response. The fisherman glances toward the sea. If you want answers, he says, follow the sound at dusk. It comes from the old temple. Not many do anymore. He looks away, muttering something about the dream that remembers itself. The words ripple through your memory like a pebble in still water dot as the day warms. You wander the paths, noticing more details you'd missed. Before, a mural half faded on a tavern wall, showing a figure reclining amid waves, eyes closed, holding a shell to his ear. Children draw spirals in the dust as they play. Even the cicadas seem to sing in a rhythm 3 beats, pause, 2 beats like a code only the island knows. You rest beneath a fig tree, and for a moment, the sound of the waves syncs perfectly. With your heartbeat, you think of that submerged heartbeat from your dream, how it pulsed in the water beneath you, and then you realize something eerie. It's pulsing again now, faintly. Beneath the ground, the island isn't just shaped like a sleeping figure. It is one. Night returns gently, draping the sky in navy silk. The moon is fuller tonight, and as you step outside, you feel the hum returning, the same low vibration as in your dream. The amulet in your pocket thrums softly, as if agreeing. You follow the sound toward the edge of the village. The air thickens with the scent of seaweed and stone. At the base of a crumbling staircase, half swallowed by earth, the hum grows louder. You kneel, brushing sand away until you uncover an inscription worn nearly smooth. To the one who sleeps, but dreams as still. The words tremble slightly in the moonlight dot, and for the first time, you wonder if you've come here to find the god or to remember him. The waves sigh against the rocks, rhythmic and calm. Somewhere below, beneath layers of coral and myth, something ancient exhales in its sleep, and you exhale with it. The air tastes like salt and prophecy. You hold the cracked marble amulet up to the moon, and for the briefest second, it glows from within like an eye opening underwater. You wake with the sound of humming stone in your ears. It isn't a noise that anyone else seems to notice. It's one of those low, bone-deep sounds that feels more inside than outside, like the murmur of your own pulse when you press your head. Underwater, morning has already slanted across the island, bright and salt white, and the air is heavy with that sticky warmth only the Aegean can conjure, half sunlight, half ancient dust. The innkeeper greets you with bread and honey, nodding. Toward the cliffs. If you follow the path behind the cypress trees, you'll see her, he says, not quite explaining who she is. Then, as if remembering an old instruction, he adds, don't speak first. Just listen. You thank him and pocket a small piece of the bread. It's crusty and sweet, and as you walk, the scent follows you, comforting. Almost too human compared to everything else here. The path winds upward through olive groves humming with cicadas. Their rhythm is hypnotic, every chirp synchronized. Like breath, you notice how the olives seem to glisten silver instead of green, reflecting the light in quick, dazzling flashes. It's the kind of detail you'd normally dismiss, but on this island, light itself seems alive, bending toward whatever story it wants to tell. Halfway up the slope, you find it, a ring of marble columns surrounding a circular platform sunken into the ground. Most of the columns are broken, toppled by time or disinterest. But in the center stands something stranger, a massive slab of dark stone, roughly oval. Embedded in the earth like the lid of a sleeping eye, it hums, softly, faintly. Like a whisper heard through heavy fabric, the sound vibrates the solace of your feet. You crouch down and touch the surface, warm not from the sun, But from within, a shadow moves behind you. You turn, and there she is, Dot, an old woman wrapped in linen and sea blue wool, her face traced, with deep sunlit wrinkles. Around her neck hangs an amulet much like yours, except whole. She doesn't look at you directly. Instead, she studies the stone, tilting her head as if listening to music only she can hear. You found the oracle, she says quietly, voice like wind brushing over reeds. Or perhaps it found you. You start to speak, but remember the innkeeper's warning. The woman seems to notice your restraint and smiles faintly. Good, you're learning. You nod, still unsure what you're meant to do. She gestures for you to sit beside her. The stone beneath you thrums like a heartbeat that's almost but not quite human. They used to speak clearly. She murmurs. In the days when the god was still awake, the stone echoed his thoughts. Every dream, every wish he forgot. But when he fell asleep, the words twisted. You tilt your head, trying to hear what she hears. Beneath the hum, you can almost make out syllables, fragments of language too old for memory. What does it say now? Yes, softly does she. Smiles again, wistful. It says, a dream that remembers itself will wake the sea. You repeat the phrase under your breath. It feels heavy in your mouth, like a secret that doesn't want to be spoken. The woman traces a spiral into the dust beside her. Once, when I was young, we held festivals for him. We sang his name so he would know he still existed. But one year, no one remembered the final verse. We sang nonsense, and the sea grew quiet. You glance down at your own amulet. This charm, you say, does it have to do with him? She reaches out, her fingers brushing the crack. All of them do. The marble comes from this very stone. It remembers every dream carved here. Yours carries a piece of that memory. She stands slowly, brushing sand from her robe. Tonight, if you listen, you'll hear the oracle again. Louder, maybe clearer. But remember, truth here comes softly. Shout at it, and it hides. As she walks away, you notice the strange way her shadow doesn't quite match her movements. It lags half a second behind, as if it too were listening. You remain by the oracle until the cicada's chorus begins to fade into the deeper hum of evening. The sea breeze climbs the hillside, carrying with it the briny sweetness of kelp and rosemary. Each breath feels older than the one before it. The light changes, gold sliding toward amber, and for a moment, the carvings on the oracle stone shimmer faintly. Spirals, eyes, and wave patterns, just like those etched into the islands. Rocks. You run your fingers across them, feeling the grooves pulse under your touch. Then, just as the sun dips behind the hills, the humming deepens into something like speech. Not quite words, more a pattern of sounds that feels like language disguised. As wind, it rises, then settles into a single phrase that seems to echo inside your chest. Dream that remembers itself. You repeat it, and the air changes. The light softens, and for a brief instant, you see something impossible. The shadow of a figure reclining beneath the stone, luminous and huge, outlined as if by lightning seen underwater. Then it fades, leaving only the sound of your heartbeat and the faintest laughter, distant as thunder beyond the horizon dot, as you descend the path toward the village. The cicadas resume their song, louder now, syncopated in odd intervals. You can't tell if they're echoing the phrase, but it feels deliberate somehow, like the whole island is murmuring with you. Back in the village square, torches are being lit. A child hums a tune, off-key but familiar, the same rhythm as the phrase you've just heard. You realize with a chill of wonder that you must have heard the melody in your dream the first night. Lullaby about the god shell. You glance toward the darkening shoreline, where waves lap in slow, rhythmic breaths. The cracked amulet in your hand vibrates once, faintly, like a cat purring in its sleep. The oracle's hum hasn't left you. It's there in your bones now. Quiet, but insistent. And as night draws its veil across the island, you begin to suspect that the odd dream the prophecy mentioned isn't a single dream at all. It's a chain of them linked, remembered, passed from mortal to mortal. Keeping something divine from fading completely, you whisper the phrase one last time, dream that remembers itself. Somewhere below, in the slow dark heart of the island, something shifts almost imperceptibly, like a sleeper turning toward the sound of their own name. Dawn on the island feels more like a memory than a sunrise. The light creeps over the hills in a hush, not spilling, but seeping pale. Diluted gold that softens the ruins and the waves into one endless surface. The air carries the faint scent of time, salt, and something older. Like wet stone that remembers its first storm, you walk toward the shoreline, the cracked marble amulet warm in your pocket, humming faintly against your thigh. Every step feels preordained. The villagers are awake already, performing small, deliberate tasks, sweeping thresholds, polishing the shells above their doors, whispering phrases that sound suspiciously like prayers disguised as gossip that no one greets you, but they don't seem surprised to see you either. You've become part of the island's rhythm now, absorbed into its slow, ancient breath dot down by the harbor. You find an old man seated beside a tangle of fishing nets. He hums to himself, voice as frayed as the rope between his hands. When you approach, he looks up with pale, sea-glass eyes and says simply, "You've heard him." It isn't a question, you nod. "The oracle?" He chuckles softly, shaking his head. "No, child, the god. The one this place once belonged to." He gestures with a weathered hand toward the sea. "Not Poseidon. Not one the mainland priests. Would write of a small god barely divine, but ours, his name was dot dot well." He trails off, gaze drifting toward the horizon. "We forgot it long ago. Maybe you did too." You sit beside him, the salt air thick with the smell of drying fish. An old rope. He continues, "He was the god of small currents, the ones that circle beneath the surface and never reach shore. Fishermen prayed to him to keep their nets from tangling, to bring them home even when the stars hid. Nothing grand, just a quiet God doing quiet work." There's something tender in his tone, almost familial. "But," he adds, leaning closer, "he loved dreams more than the sea. Said they were another kind of tide. He listened to them when mortals slept. They said he could mend them, untie the knots of nightmare, smooth away the storms of fear. And one night he fell asleep himself, just to see what mortals felt. Never woke again. He picks up a shell from the sand and holds it to your ear. You expect silence, but you hear a faint echo, not of the ocean, but of breathing. Slow, steady, rhythmic. He's still dreaming," the man says. "And we, his children, his keepers, dream with him so he won't drift too far." You turn the shell over in your hands. Its inside is lined with spirals, the same pattern you saw carved into the oracle stone. "And the name?" you ask. He smiles sadly. The name. Some say it began with a sound like Thal, others Ion. But the truth, he gave it away, offered it to the sea as a promise. Said he'd find it again when someone dreamed of him without knowing why. You feel the amulet vibrate again, almost sympathetically, as if it recognizes the story. The old man gestures toward the cliffs where you found the oracle. "The priests used to call him the god of forgotten names. They said even his own reflection refused to say it aloud." You look down at the shell in your hand, and for a moment, you swear the ridges shift under your fingers like gills drawing a breath. He continues, voice softer now. "When he slept, the island slept with him. That's why the wind moves so slowly here. Why no storms last long? It's a kindness, I think. His dream smooths the edges of the world. But if he forgets himself completely," he adds after a pause, "then the island will crumble into foam. We'll all go back to the sea." You realize the man isn't afraid of this. He says it like someone talking about going home. As you walk away, you hear him begin to hum again, a melody that feels both familiar and impossibly distant. You realize with a small jolt that it's the same lullaby the child sang last night in the village square at the edge of the harbor stands. A small shrine, barely more than an arch of coral and sea-polished stones. Inside sits a clay bowl filled with seawater and olive leaves. The scent is faintly medicinal, and you can't help leaning in, breathing it in. It smells like healing and memory. Someone has etched faint letters into the coral. We remember. Him in sleep. You dip your fingers into the bowl. The water feels thicker than it should, warm as blood. When you withdraw your hand, a single olive leaf clings to your skin. You try to brush it away, but it stays pulsing faintly, as if alive. The sensation isn't unpleasant more, like being tethered gently to something vast and patient. You spend the afternoon wandering along the rocky shore. Every few meters, you find offerings tucked into crevices, a piece of driftwood carved with spirals, a handful of sea glass, a half-eaten loaf of bread. Simple human gestures of remembrance. You begin to sense a pattern in the landscape itself. The island isn't random. Every hill, every inlet seems arranged around the shape of a reclining figure, like a body curled beneath the waves. The villagers' rituals, the placement of their homes, even the songs, they're all designed to soothe it, to keep it dreaming. As the sun dips low, the air thickens with gold and salt. You find yourself sitting beside a small child who's tracing circles in the sand with a stick. She looks up at you and says, matter-of-factly, he's lonely, Who? You ask. The one who sleeps, she replies, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. He dreams people like you, so he's not alone. You blink, startled. He dreams us? She nods solemnly. And we dream him back, or he disappears? You look out at the water. The surface gleams like polished silver. For a moment, you imagine a vast eye beneath it, watching not maliciously, just curiously. The girl stands, brushing sand from her hands. If you see the dream tonight, she says, tell him we still remember, even if we don't know his name. Then she skips away, humming the same old tune everyone seems to know without learning. When night falls again, you return to your room, exhausted but restless. You place the cracked amulet beside the shell and the olive leaf on the table. Together, they hum faintly in the dark, a harmony of low, overlapping sounds that almost form a word. Almost thought you lie down and close your eyes, letting the rhythm carry you. The air smells of salt and sleep. Somewhere beneath the island, a small God stirs in his dreams, perhaps wondering who among his creations will remember him next. And as the hum fades into your breathing, you realize you already have. The moon tonight is so pale it looks like it's been rinsed in milk. You follow its light through the narrow village streets until the sound of laughter and drums begins to hum through the air like a heartbeat. The villagers are gathering. You realize not in the square, but down by the water. You'd forgotten that the fisherman yesterday mentioned something about a festival. Now, as you approach the beach, you see the glow of torches trembling on the sand, the reflections rippling. Like liquid fire. It isn't a loud celebration. The music is gentle, slow, as if the players are half asleep flutes breathing soft notes, drums pulsing lazily, and voices humming in unison with the tide. The sleepers' festival. Someone whispers beside you. A woman draped in blue linen smiles, faintly when she sees your curiosity. We do this once every few years, she says, her voice the texture of foam. To remind the god we're still here. To let him know his dream isn't finished. She presses a small clay bowl into your hands. Inside, olive oil, a few crushed lavender blossoms, and something else, a pale powder that smells faintly. Honey and rain. You'll need this, she says, to make your offering. You follow her toward the edge of the crowd. The villagers are forming a slow spiral in the sand, circling a central altar made of coral and driftwood. Each person carries a bowl like yours, and as the flutes play, they begin to tip their offerings into the fire. One by one, tiny flames bloom green and blue, releasing smoke that smells like rosemary and salt. The spiral turns counterclockwise, an old, almost forgotten pattern meant for dreaming rather than waking. You join in, feeling slightly self-conscious, but comforted by the rhythm. The sand is cool under your feet, damp from the tide. A young boy near you begins to sing a verse, though he keeps losing the melody. Others laugh softly, correcting him with kindness. It's clear that no one here knows the exact words anymore. The song is eroded like coral in the current. Still, they sing. You glance toward the horizon. The sea looks unusually still, as though it's listening. The moonlight paints it in silver ribbons, each wave crest glowing faintly. A sudden breeze carries the smoke toward you, thick with lavender and burnt oil. It curls around your face like a shawl, and for a moment you feel dizzy caught between waking and sleep. The drums slow even more, almost mimicking the rhythm of breath. The woman in blue whispers, "The old chants aren't perfect anymore, but the God forgives." Dreams don't need precision, they just need heart. You smile, faintly at that. Somewhere deep down, it feels true. When it's your turn to offer the bowl, you kneel at the edge of the spiral. The fire before you is small, no higher than your knees. You pour the oil and flowers into it, and a plume of pale smoke rises. It smells not of lavender anymore, but of something familiar. The same faint mineral scent that clung to the oracle. Stone. You close your eyes. Behind your eyelids, the darkness isn't empty, it swirls, patterned with shapes like shells, eyes, spirals. And there, for the briefest heartbeat, you see him, the sleeping god. Not massive or grand, but small, boyish almost, curled in a nest of light and water. His hair floats around him like seaweed. He looks peaceful. Then his lips move, and though no sound reaches you, the meaning is unmistakable. Remember me kindly. Your eyes open again. The fire flickers low, its smoke thinning into stars. Around you, the villagers have begun to lie down where they stand, curling onto the sand like petals folding at dusk. The flutes grow quieter, the drums fade, and even the waves seem to hush themselves. The woman in blue leans close. "Now we sleep together," she whispers, "so that he will not dream alone." You find a spot near the fire and lie down, too, resting your head on your arm. The sand beneath you radiates gentle warmth, like the body of the island itself breathing beneath the surface. The stars overhead blur softly, as if drifting underwater. Somewhere near your ear, a crab scuttles, clicking tiny claws against a seashell. You're aware of the sound, but it feels impossibly distant. Already part of the dream forming behind your closed eyes. In that dream, you're standing in shallow water. The god's reflection ripples before you, half light, half memory. "Do you remember my name yet?" he asks, his voice blending with the sea. You start to answer, but realize you have no mouth, only the hum of the amulet resonating from within your chest. Then he smiles. "It's all right," he says. "Names are only important to the waking." The dream folds around you like warm cloth. When you wake again, dawn has already tinted the waves pale rose. The villagers are stirring slowly, rubbing sand from their hair, smiling sleepily at one another. Some of them hum bits of the half-remembered song. You can tell none of them fully recall what happened in the night, but they look lighter somehow, as if their rest has been shared with something immense. And benevolent, you stand, brushing sand from your clothes. The cracked amulet at your chest feels warmer than before, pulsing gently with each heartbeat. The sea is calm, impossibly calm. Near your feet lies the clay bowl you offered to the fire, now filled with seawater. Floating inside is a single lavender petal, perfectly unburned. You lift it carefully. It smells faintly of smoke and honey. You tuck it into your pocket beside the shell. Another keepsake, another whisper of something divine remembering itself as you walk back toward the village. The words of the woman in blue echo softly. Dreams don't need precision. They just need heart. And for the first time since you arrived, you begin to wonder if the god once fell asleep to learn what mortals feel. Maybe tonight you've finally begun to understand what it feels like to be divine. The morning after the festival feels like waking inside a dream that hasn't quite decided to end. The village smells of smoke and figs, the air thick with the sweetness of spilt wine and seed brine. You follow the narrow lane downhill, guided. More by the echo of laughter than by sight. Somewhere near the harbor, someone is singing off key a tune that flutters and folds like a broken gull wing. The tavern is still half asleep. Its shutters open to the sea breeze. Inside, the light is honey-colored, filtering through old glass bottles lined along the counter. You slide into a wooden chair still warm from the sun, and almost immediately, An old man appears from behind the bar, carrying 2 cups of wine. He sets one in front of you, though you didn't order anything. It's the morning after, he says with a grin. The god's hangover deserves company. You can't help but smile. The wine is dark and heavy, tasting faintly of salt and pomegranates. You celebrate him every year? You ask. Only when he stirs, the man replies. His eyes twinkle with mischief, or maybe memory. The sea told us this time, came in too calm for too long. That's always the sign. He sits across from you, crossing arms lean as driftwood. You heard the tale, then? The night the god vanished mid-dream? You shake your head? I've heard whispers. Never the whole story. He nods, pleased, and leans closer, lowering his voice to the soft rumble of waves on stone. Long ago, before Athens had marble and before the great cities thought themselves gods, there was our god. Not grand, not jealous, gentle, the sort who would bless fishermen who mended their nets with patience, not strength. He didn't like storms. Said they spoiled the songs of the sea. He gestures toward the horizon with his cup. Then one night, a storm came that didn't belong to the world. No lightning, no thunder, just wind that sounded like 1,000 voices talking in their sleep. The islanders thought he'd be angry. Instead, he sat by the shore, listening. You lean closer. Listening to what? The old man shrugs, smiling crookily. Dreams, maybe. Or the sea remembering something it had lost. He told them he'd go into the storm to find the dream's center. Said if he succeeded, the island would know peace forever. He takes a slow sip. So he lay down by the water, placed his head on a shell, and closed his eyes. The wind stopped instantly. The sea went still. You feel the weight of silence settle around you, broken only by the soft creak of the cavern beams. And then, you ask God the man taps his cup, watching the ripples spread through the wine. He never woke. The water stayed calm for 3 days. And on the 4th, the tide carried away every statue, every inscription with his name. It was as if the sea had swallowed the memory whole. He leans back, looking thoughtful. All that was left was this. He reaches into his pocket and produces a small, smooth pebble carved with concentric circles. You recognize the pattern instantly, the same as your cracked amulet. They found it where his head had been. You turn your wine cup slightly. A small ripple distorts the reflection of your face, one that moves even after you've gone still. The man watches it too. Some say that ripple is the edge of his dream, still circling the island, never fading. Outside, a gust of sea breeze flutters through the doorway, carrying the scent of salt and roasted fish. It feels oddly like a breath. You glance toward the harbor, where the water glows faintly beneath the morning sun. You still believe he's there, you say softly. The man shrugs. The leaf doesn't matter much here. The island remembers for us. You finish your wine, setting the cup down gently. The ripple inside it swirls again, even though you didn't touch it. The man grins. See? He still listens. You'd best make your wish before he grows bored. You stare into the cup and whisper a thought, not quite a prayer, more an apology, for not knowing what to say. The ripple pauses, then expands slowly outward, forming a single ring that doesn't fade. The tavern grows quieter. The air thickens slightly, like the pause between inhale and exhale. You could swear you hear a voice, not from the room, but from somewhere deep within the sound of the sea. Remember me kindly. You blink, and it's gone. The cup is still. The man has already moved on to wipe down another table, humming. The same tune you heard at the festival. You leave a few coins and step outside. The sunlight feels sharper now, the colors too vivid. The cobblestones are hot under your sandals. The market square is stirring back to life. Fishmongers arranging silver-scaled catches, women hanging bright claws between stalls, children chasing each other through the smell of olives and lemon peel. The ordinary hum of life resumes. Yet under it all, there's a quiet pulse, a rhythm that doesn't quite belong to human time. You pause by a fountain, its water trickling lazily over, basin shaped like a shell. You drop a coin inside, half expecting to hear the echo of that whisper again. But The sound that answers is simpler, more intimate. The quiet plink of metal meeting water. You notice something glinting at the bottom of the fountain, a fragment of marble, carved with the same spiral design. Dozens of them, you realize, scattered like offerings, each one cracked, each one incomplete. The island has been remembering him piece by piece. You kneel, dipping your hand into the cool water. For an instant, your reflection shifts not into the god, but into something that might have been his dream of you. Softer, luminous. Unbothered by time. Then the image ripples away, leaving only your face again. You pocket one of the marble fragments, the edges smoothed by centuries of water. It feels strangely familiar, as if it's been waiting for you to find a dot as you walk back toward your lodging. The taste of wine lingers on your tongue, salt, fruit, and something indefinable. Flavor? You can't quite name, and beneath it all, faint but steady, the hum continues.